Should key events in the historical development of the human sciences always be judged by the standards of their time? To test this idea, let's first put it in the context of the ethics of an everyday person. In the modern day, people have a tendency to make judgments about people's actions, whether they are from today, decades ago, or hundreds of years ago. When making an ethical judgment, one must first start with a basis of what is considered right and what is considered wrong. But what is the best way to create that foundation? Is there a best way, or is it up for interpretation? You as an individual have a unique moral compass, a set of beliefs telling you what you think is right and what is wrong. While this may differ from person to person, for the most part, people hold common moral beliefs when existing within the same time frame. Over time, these collective morals evolve with society. In one century, a certain belief or action is considered wrong by most people, but 100 years later, that can be completely flipped. While there are always a multitude of sides to each ethical debate, for many issues, the majority of society will fall one way. Let's consider the idea of judging someone in the past by their actions using the morals of today. In the late 1700s, husbands beating their wives was not uncommon. Although there were people on both sides of this issue, the average person may not think very much about hearing about a husband beating their wife. Today, although domestic abuse is still prevalent, there are systems set up to keep this from happening, and the general public collectively believes that it is wrong to abuse your wife or any other member of your household. Considering most of society wasn't wildly opposed to this abuse in the 1700s, was it still wrong? Your instincts are probably telling you yes. But let's consider a reverse situation where instead you are the person being judged. If you are like 92% of the population, you probably consume meat products, quite possibly on a daily basis. Although there is a small segment of the population who are vegetarian or vegan, the meat eaters make up the vast majority. While some of these diets are due to health reasons or cultural reasons, the main reason that U.S. citizens may not eat meat is for ethical reasons. In the past years, there has been an uptick in the prevalence of plant-based products, making it easier for an average person to give up meat. There has also been an increase into research into the cruelties which take place in the dairy and meat industries. All of this combined is slowly leading our society away from animal products and towards plant-based products. This is not to compare the abuse of women in the 18th century to the meat industry at all, only to compare the way their treatment is ethically viewed in society over time. Consider the possibility that 150 years from now, meat products will be very rare and highly looked down upon. When future populations are studying the lives of people today, they may look at the fact that we ate meat and think that we were horrible, immoral, bloodthirsty murderers. The question that we're trying to answer here is, should key events in the development of the social sciences always be judged by the ethics of their time? Now that we've put the issue into the context of daily life, let's apply it specifically to the human sciences. During the early 1800s, the idea of phrenology gained popularity and was widely believed to be an accurate way of predicting the personality traits of an individual. Phrenology was the idea that the different formations of the skull, including bumps and divots, could be used to predict the personality of an individual. Various trials from that time showed promising evidence that this was indeed a true science. The creator of phrenology, Franz Gall, believed that even someone's personal moral compass was embedded into the structure of their skull. It was even used in a trial to defend a 9-year-old boy in 1834, claiming that the crime he had committed was not his fault because his phrenology showed that a bump in his skull behind his ear showed that he was naturally prone to destructiveness. By 1940, phrenology was widely discovered to be a pseudoscience, and since that time, scientists have not been able to repeat the original results of the study, which showed a correlation between phrenology and an individual's personality traits. Let's consider this example to answer our question. Should key events in the development of the social sciences always be judged by the standards of their time? A common occurrence in psychology, especially recently, is the results of a study performed a long time ago, say 40, 100, 300 years ago, are not showing the same results today that they did back then. At the time these studies were performed, the results allowed their discoveries to be considered facts, similar to how phrenology was. Although many concepts in human sciences eventually show different results, does this invalidate the previous findings? Someone who believes that social science should always be judged by the standards of their time would say no. These discoveries are not at all invalidated, because the context and time frame of a study has such a great effect on the results that just because something has been proven to be false today does not prove that it was false then. Someone who believes the opposite, that studies can be judged by today's standards, would say that they view some subjects in the human sciences to be factual, with possibility of disproval, although both sides have many cases to which their ideals can be applied. The answer likely lies somewhere in between. It would be wrong to never consider the context of a study, as that can have a drastic result on why findings from the past may not match those of today. But without judging knowledge of the past by the standards of today, people may miss opportunities to grow in knowledge and reshape our knowledge of the human science discoveries applied to both today and the past. Differences in opinion in these kinds of questions are exactly what make the human sciences such a difficult subject to study. How can we know what is accurate and what isn't, and what remains true and what doesn't, with the ever-varying ways of conducting studies and the many factors that play into their results? Just as quickly as scientists make discoveries about human behavior, those behaviors change. The idea of studying oneself ultimately becomes a paradox as humans learn more about their own tendencies and naturally try to break away from them. We learn about human flaw in human nature and try to defy it to become better than what we are, ultimately creating new flaws. By judging behavior in the context of its time, a more historically accurate view of society's progression can be made, but it comes with the burden of judging what was truly representative of behavior in the past and what conclusions were the results of faulty testing. The list of factors that go into the conclusions made in human science are extensive, with the concept of societal shifts over time being only one of them. By learning to judge when the best times are to judge historical human science discoveries by the standard of their time versus the standard of our time, the human sciences can more efficiently use knowledge from the past to shape the way we study our present and shape our future.